The sun had barely risen, casting a soft glow over the cities of Earth, when the first sign of something truly terrifying appeared. At first, it was just a speck in the sky, no bigger than a distant star. But as moments passed, it grew larger, looming in the heavens like a giant shadow. Panic spread quickly as people gazed upward in disbelief. From every corner of the world, eyes turned toward the dark shapes that blocked out the sun, hovering ominously over the skyline of major cities. The alien ships were sleek, their surfaces reflecting the light in a way that made them seem both beautiful and deadly at the same time. They were so large that it felt as though the entire sky had been swallowed by their shadow, and for a long while, the world held its breath, unsure of what was coming next. A silence fell over the earth, a silence heavy with dread. The ships hovered motionless, their presence unsettling and strange, as if the world itself had frozen in time. Then came the message. It echoed in every language, across every communication channel, clear and chilling. Surrender or face extinction. It was blunt, without explanation, and yet its meaning could not have been more clear. The alien invaders had come to claim the Earth, and there was no room for negotiation. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. World leaders, once powerful and decisive, were now paralyzed with fear. What could they do against such overwhelming force? Earth's most advanced military strategies were useless against these invaders, who seemed to control technology beyond human imagination. They had no way to fight back, no way to defend themselves against an enemy that was so much more advanced. Panic set in as officials debated, argued, and struggled to find a solution. But as the days passed, it became clear that there was nothing they could do, at least, nothing they had been able to see. In the middle of all the chaos, in a remote location deep within the Nevada desert, a group of scientists and military personnel worked in absolute secrecy. Their project had been kept hidden from the public eye for years, funded and developed under the radar of even the highest world leaders. For a long time, they had hoped they would never need to use what they had built. The exo-armors, they called them, highly advanced combat suits designed to enhance the physical abilities of the human wearer. It was a project born out of desperation, started long before anyone ever imagined the Earth would face a threat like this. But now the time had come. It was no longer a matter of whether they would be needed. It was a matter of survival. As Earth's leaders argued in panic, the small team in Nevada worked tirelessly, finalizing the exo-armors and preparing them for the most crucial mission humanity had ever faced. No one else knew of this project, and for good reason. The suits were a last-ditch effort, something that was only to be used when all else failed. And now it seemed humanity's final hope lay in these suits, in the hands of a few brave individuals who would be willing to wear them and fight back against the invaders. But as they prepared, they couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the aliens knew more than they were letting on. How could such an advanced civilization make such a bold move, so confident in their victory? What was it about Earth that made them so sure of success? The clock was ticking, and Earth's survival depended on the unknown. The quiet, unassuming desert base in Nevada was humanity's only hope now, as it held the secret weapon that could level the playing field against an enemy far stronger than anything the world had ever known. There was no turning back now. The first shots had been fired in an intergalactic war, and humanity's response would be decided by the people in those very desert caves, hidden away from the rest of the world. Only time would tell if their secret weapon would be enough to save Earth, or if they were simply delaying the inevitable. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, far from the eyes of the world, humanity's greatest secret lay hidden in a vast underground facility. The air was thick with the hum of machines, and the walls echoed with the sounds of engineers and military experts working tirelessly. This was no ordinary military base. This was the heart of the Aegis Project, a top-secret initiative that had been underway for years. It was in these underground chambers that humanity's final hope was being forged, the exo-armors. The project had started as a response to early reconnaissance reports, which revealed the terrifying capabilities of the alien ships that had appeared in Earth's skies. The invaders were not only technologically superior, but also seemed to have an unmatched ability to adapt to any form of resistance. In short, Earth had no chance. Also, the aliens thought. The exo-armors were not mere pieces of military equipment. They were marvels of human ingenuity, combining Earth's most advanced weapons systems with cutting-edge biotechnology. Each suit was a complex blend of technology and organic matter, engineered to enhance every aspect of the human body. The suits were built with nanotechnology that could adapt to the wearer's physical capabilities, improving their reflexes, strength, and resilience to levels never before seen in human history. Each exo-armor was designed to bond with the wearer's body, forming a perfect union of man and machine. The exoskeleton could amplify a person's natural abilities, while the interior systems could heal minor wounds almost instantly and provide the user with enhanced vision, hearing, and reaction times. These suits weren't just tools, they were the key to survival in a war the human race was not prepared for. For years, only a handful of highly trained soldiers had worn the exo-armors. They were tested, trained, and refined in secret, but never used in real combat. The team that developed them had always hoped they would never need to deploy such a drastic solution. But now, as the alien fleet hovered over Earth, ready to strike, the time had come. There was no other choice. The world's leaders were paralyzed by fear, their armies incapable of stopping the extraterrestrial invasion. Humanity's only hope lay in the hands of a few brave individuals who would wear the exo-armors and face the unknown. As the news of the alien invasion spread like wildfire, the team in the underground facility moved with urgency. The exo-armors, which had once been seen as a mere contingency plan, were now humanity's last line of defense. The soldiers who were chosen to wear them knew the risks. They would be part of an unprecedented battle, facing an enemy far superior in strength and technology. But they also knew the stakes. There was no room for fear. As the final adjustments were made to the suits, the soldiers began to suit up. The heavy metal plates slid into place, the organic fibers adjusted to their bodies, and the nanobots began to work their magic, enhancing the soldiers' muscles and senses. For the first time, the soldiers were no longer just humans. They were something more, something far greater than the sum of their parts. Outside, the alien ships were descending. Their arrival was inevitable. Humanity's time was running out. In the depths of the Nevada desert, however, something had shifted. The people who wore the exo-armors were not merely soldiers, they were the vanguard of a new kind of warfare. They were humanity's ultimate weapon, the culmination of years of research and sacrifice. And as they prepared to face the enemy, there was an undeniable sense of anticipation in the air. This was it. The world had changed forever, and humanity's fate would now be decided by the soldiers in those gleaming suits. The exo-armors, once a secret kept deep within the Earth, were ready to be revealed to the world. What no one knew was that they were not just a match for the alien invaders. There was something that could turn the tide of war in ways that no one could have predicted. As the first soldiers donned the armor and stepped into the outside world, a new chapter of the human race began. The battle for Earth was about to become something that no one could have ever imagined. The aliens had thought they would come, conquer, and leave without a second thought. They had no idea what humanity had been quietly preparing, hidden beneath the surface of a world they had underestimated. And now, the war was truly beginning. The first major clash between humans and the invaders took place in one of Earth's largest cities, New York. The alien forces began to land in full force, their massive war machines shaking the ground with each step. Their sleek, imposing figures towered over the city, easily overwhelming any resistance in their path. The humans, still reeling from the initial shock of the invasion, had been scrambling to defend their homes and loved ones. But as the alien soldiers began their ground assault, humanity's fate seemed sealed. The aliens, confident in their power, had no reason to expect anything other than a swift victory. After all, they had conquered dozens of worlds before without meeting any real resistance. But they had underestimated Earth, and more importantly, they had underestimated the power of humanity's hidden weapon. As the alien soldiers advanced, their weapons firing in every direction, something unexpected happened. From the shadows of the crumbling buildings and dark alleyways, figures clad in shimmering, metallic armor appeared. The exo-armors had been deployed. At first, the aliens did not know what to make of this new threat. The humans inside the exo-armors moved with a speed and precision that was almost too fast to follow. The armored suits, designed to enhance every aspect of human strength and agility, were far more capable than anything the invaders had anticipated. They moved like shadows, swift and deadly, each strike landing with deadly accuracy. The aliens, used to overwhelming force, found themselves struggling to keep up with this new type of resistance. The first alien soldier charged forward, weapon raised, expecting an easy kill. But before it could land a blow, the human pilot in the exo-armor sidestepped with an impossible speed, then spun around, landing a blow that sent the alien sprawling to the ground. The impact was so strong that it shattered the alien's armor. The invaders' soldiers, once sure of their superiority, now hesitated. The humans inside these suits were not just fighting. They were countering every move with near-perfect reflexes. Each strike, each counter, seemed to predict the enemy's next move. It was as if the exo-armor pilots had gained the upper hand in ways the aliens couldn't comprehend. The invaders' advanced weapons, once powerful enough to level buildings, now seemed inadequate. The exo-armors were built for more than just survival. They were designed to be weapons of war, with strength and agility that outmatched even the alien soldiers' most advanced combat systems. One by one, the aliens fell as the humans fought back with precision and strategy. What had once been a one-sided battle was now turning into a fierce resistance, as the exo-armors began to cut through the alien ranks like a hot knife through butter. The aliens' confidence quickly faltered. Their weapons, powerful as they were no match for the speed and power of the humans inside the suits. In the midst of the chaos, humanity realized something crucial. The exo-armors weren't just a weapon. They were a game-changer. The invaders had believed they were unstoppable. They had expected the humans to fall in line and surrender. But instead, they were faced with a resistance unlike anything they had ever encountered. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were pushing forward. Every alien that tried to strike was met with a counter that left them stunned and defeated. The exo-armors were more than just machines. They were an extension of the human will to survive, a symbol of humanity's determination to not go down without a fight. For the first time, the aliens began to realize they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought Earth would be easy to conquer, just like so many other worlds they had taken before. But the humans were different. They had something the invaders could not have predicted: hope. And as the exo-armor pilots pressed forward, pushing back the alien forces, it became clear that this war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Humanity had found its weapon, and the battle for Earth had taken a turn the invaders were not prepared for. The first clash had shown both sides one undeniable truth: this was not going to be an easy victory for the aliens. As the battle raged across Earth's major cities, the ground trembled with the force of war. The air was thick with smoke and the constant roar of explosions. The invaders, once so confident in their superiority, now seemed uncertain. The alien commanders, faces cold and unreadable beneath their helmets, scrambled to adjust their tactics. They had expected an easy conquest, but humanity, armed with their exo-armors and fueled by a fierce determination, had proven far more resilient than anyone could have imagined. Every battle brought new victories for the humans, pushing the invaders back with unexpected ferocity. It became clear that Earth's resistance would not be so easily crushed. Despite the odds, the invaders were now the ones who were on the defensive. Amidst the chaos, Captain Elena Serrano, one of the top exo-armor pilots, found herself in the heart of the conflict. She was stationed on the front lines, coordinating attacks and overseeing the defense of a key military base that had become a critical point in the battle. Elena was no stranger to combat, but something about this war felt different, something in the way the aliens fought. It wasn't just that they were highly skilled or well-equipped, there was something almost desperate in their movements. They were acting as though they had a goal beyond mere conquest, as though their very survival was at stake. But why? While preparing for a new offensive, Elena received an encrypted message from the Central Command. It was an intercepted communication from the alien fleet. At first, it appeared to be a standard military report, but as Elena dug deeper into the transmissions, a shocking truth began to surface. The aliens were not just conquerors. No, they were fleeing from something far worse than anything humanity had ever faced. The intercepted messages revealed that this invasion was not their first. In fact, the alien species had attempted to colonize countless planets across the galaxy, but each time, they were driven away. Not by other civilizations, but by a mysterious, far more powerful entity, something ancient and far beyond the invaders' own capabilities. The aliens, once thought to be the greatest threat in the galaxy, were mere refugees running from a force so terrifying that even they could not stand against it. Elena's mind raced as she pieced the fragments of information together. If the aliens were fleeing something, what was it? What could possibly be strong enough to scare them? She had always assumed that the alien invaders had come to Earth for its resources, but now it seemed there was a far darker reason for their arrival. The invasion, she realized, was not a conquest, it was a warning. The invaders were not here to destroy Earth, but to delay the coming of something far worse. In the weeks that followed, Elena continued to investigate the intercepted communications, desperately searching for more answers. What she uncovered was disturbing beyond measure. The invaders had been running from an ancient force known only as the Elder Collective, a mysterious empire that spanned the galaxy. The Collective had wiped out entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind but devastation. They were said to be relentless, unstoppable, and terrifying in ways that no one could fully comprehend. It dawned on Elena. The humans were not simply fighting an alien invasion. They were caught in the middle of a much larger war, one they had never seen coming. The invaders were not the true enemy. The real threat was the Elder Collective, a force of unimaginable power, and it was on its way to Earth. The question now was not whether humanity could defeat the aliens, but whether humanity could even survive the arrival of the Collective itself. As Elena pondered this horrifying new reality, the weight of her discovery became clear. The battle for Earth was no longer just about defending their planet. It was about survival against an enemy that no one on Earth had even heard of. She knew that the war they were fighting now was only the beginning of a much greater conflict, one that would decide the fate of the entire universe. The aliens had been desperate to warn humanity, and now it was up to Elena and the rest of Earth's resistance to prepare for a threat far beyond anything they had ever known. But could they prepare in time? Could Earth's fledgling armies stand against a force that had already destroyed so many others? The clock was ticking, and the universe's darkest threat was closing in. As the war raged on, something unexpected began to happen. Despite the aliens' overwhelming numbers and superior technology, Earth's fighters, armed with their newly discovered secret weapon, the exo-armors, were starting to turn the tide. The invaders, who had initially believed their conquest of Earth would be swift and effortless, found themselves locked in a struggle they hadn't anticipated. Each battle, each skirmish, became harder for the aliens as Earth's soldiers, outfitted in the advanced suits, fought with unmatched resilience and cunning. The exo-armors, faster, stronger, and more agile than the invaders had ever imagined, had given the human forces the edge they needed. These suits weren't just for defense, they were tools of destruction, and the humans were learning to use them with terrifying precision. Captain Elena Serrano and her team led the charge, pushing the invaders back inch by inch. They had trained relentlessly in the exo-armors, and now their knowledge and experience were paying off. The human soldiers were quick-thinking, adaptable, and relentless, exploiting every weakness they could find in the alien technology. The alien ships, once thought to be invincible, began to show signs of vulnerability. The team's coordinated strikes targeted critical points in the alien ships, rendering their advanced shields useless and allowing Earth's forces to deliver devastating blows. The ground forces, too, were no match for the human soldiers in exo-armors, who moved like a storm of destruction through the enemy's ranks, picking them off one by one with surgical precision. One of the boldest moves in this counter-offensive came when Elena and her team launched a daring assault on the alien flagship, a massive vessel that hovered like a dark cloud over the battlefield. The ship was the heart of the alien forces on Earth, and if they could destroy it or capture it, the aliens would lose their ability to coordinate the invasion. With their sights set on the flagship, Elena and her team infiltrated the alien vessel, using the exo-armor's stealth and agility to bypass defenses. Inside the flagship, the team fought their way to the control room, where Elena herself faced off against the alien commanders. The battle was fierce, with alien soldiers swarming the room, but Elena's team pressed forward, cutting down the invaders with relentless precision. As Elena reached the control room and disabled the alien ship's communication systems, the flagship's power started to flicker. It was a critical victory for Earth. With their communications severed and their flagship disabled, the alien forces were left disorganized and scrambling for a way to recover. Each successful strike, each victory, sent shockwaves through the alien ranks. Their confidence, which had been so unshakable in the beginning, was starting to crack. With every ground they lost, with every ship that fell from the sky, the invaders' morale began to wane. On Earth, however, the human resolve only grew stronger. Every victory, no matter how small, proved that they could fight back against the seemingly insurmountable odds. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. It was on the offensive, pushing back the invaders and reclaiming their world, one battle at a time. But amidst the growing victories, a chilling realization began to take hold. The more Elena learned about the aliens, the more she began to understand that their invasion was only a small part of a much larger war. The intercepted communications and scattered intelligence hinted at something far darker, something far more dangerous than the alien invaders themselves. The aliens, it seemed, were not the true enemy. They were merely the first wave. Their invasion was a desperate attempt to escape something far worse, a force that had driven them from world to world, leaving destruction in its wake. As humanity fought to reclaim Earth, the question became not whether they could defeat the invaders, but whether they could survive the greater threat that was on its way. With every victory against the aliens, Elena felt the weight of this truth pressing down on her. The battle for Earth was no longer just about defeating the invaders. It was about preparing for the unknown, for the true enemy that was coming, and for the battle that could determine the fate of the entire galaxy. The tide had turned, but a much larger storm was brewing, and humanity's real fight was just beginning. As humanity's resistance grew stronger and the tide of war slowly shifted in their favor, the truth behind the alien invasion began to unravel. For weeks, the human soldiers had fought tooth and nail against the invaders, believing them to be a relentless enemy bent on conquering Earth. The exo-armors had given the humans an edge they never imagined, and with each victory, Earth's forces pressed harder. But as the alien leaders realized they were losing the battle, they began to reveal something that would change everything. The truth was staggering, far more complex than anyone could have ever anticipated. The alien invaders, who had once appeared to be ruthless conquerors, were not the true threat. In fact, they were nothing more than pawns in a far grander scheme, caught in the middle of a war that spanned the galaxy. As Earth's forces made progress and pushed the alien invaders to the brink of defeat, the alien commanders made a startling confession. Their ultimate goal, they admitted, had never been to conquer Earth. Their mission was not about territory, resources, or domination. Instead, it had always been to warn humanity of a much greater and far more dangerous enemy, the Elder Collective. This was the revelation that would shake humanity to its core. The Elder Collective was an ancient race, a terrifying and ruthless empire that had consumed countless civilizations across the galaxy. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were predators. The Elder Collective was a force of nature, leaving a trail of death and destruction in its wake. The aliens who had invaded Earth were not invaders by choice, but refugees running from the Collective's unrelenting pursuit. Their fleet had been sent not to conquer, but to delay the arrival of the Elder Collective for as long as possible. The invaders, who had once seemed so fearsome, had been trying desperately to protect humanity, desperate to turn the tables by enlisting Earth's help in fighting the real threat that was coming. The aliens had known for some time that the Elder Collective was on its way, and they had no choice but to act quickly. They realized that Earth was the last line of defense, a final hope against the overwhelming might of the Collective. For years, they had hoped to weaken the Collective's advance through tactical resistance, but now they needed humanity. They needed the human spirit, ingenuity, and the exo-armors, which might be the only hope against a force that had already wiped out countless worlds. In their desperation, the invaders had become reluctant allies. No longer were they the feared enemy. The once predatory aliens, whose ships had darkened the sky with their ominous presence, were now forced to stand beside humanity in a desperate attempt to survive. Elena Serrano, now deeply entrenched in the heart of this war, could hardly comprehend the enormity of what she had just learned. Everything she had fought for, everything she had believed about the invaders, had been turned upside down. The exo-armors, the battles, the victories, all of it had led to this shocking truth. Earth was no longer just fighting for survival against an invading force. The true battle had yet to come, and it would be one unlike any humanity had ever imagined. The Elder Collective was coming, and they were coming fast. The implications of this revelation were staggering. The aliens' invasion, which had initially seemed like the beginning of Earth's destruction, was actually a desperate attempt to buy time. The Collective's arrival was inevitable. The question now was not whether humanity could defeat the invaders, it was whether humanity could even survive what was coming next. The human resistance had proven its strength, but it was now clear that no force on Earth, not even the exo-armors, would be enough to stop the Collective. Elena knew that humanity's only chance would be to unite with the aliens, to set aside their differences, and to face the true enemy together. The alien forces, now reluctantly aligned with humanity, began to share their knowledge of the Collective's tactics, their technology, and their brutal methods. But even as they worked together, a feeling of dread filled the air. The Elder Collective was not just a physical force, they were a nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for centuries. And now, humanity was about to find out just how deadly they could be. With the countdown to the Collective's arrival ticking faster than anyone dared to imagine, Earth stood on the precipice of a war that could decide the fate of the entire galaxy. And the darkness was coming. The day the Elder Collective arrived, the very skies trembled under the weight of their enormous ships. Dark, imposing vessels blotted out the sun as they descended upon Earth in overwhelming numbers. The Collective's forces, vast and terrifying in their power, poured onto the planet's surface. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, capable of wiping out entire cities with a single strike. The combined forces of Earth, consisting of the exo-armors and the alien defectors who had once been enemies, stood as humanity's last hope. Though their numbers were small compared to the Collective's vast army, there was something in the air that made this fight different. A fire, a determination, a unity that no alien empire could ever understand. The stakes were clearer now than ever before. This wasn't just the survival of Earth. This was the survival of everything humanity had ever known. As the final battle raged on, the exo-armor pilots fought with an intensity that could not be matched. With every alien machine they destroyed, with every enemy they faced down, the pilots knew what was at risk. Elena Serrano, standing at the forefront of humanity's resistance, could feel the weight of the moment. She and her team had been through countless battles, each one more harrowing than the last. But this time, it wasn't just about winning. It was about saving everything: Earth, their homes, their families, their future. The exo-armors, now fully tuned to their pilots' hearts and minds, moved as extensions of humanity's will. Each suit was an embodiment of courage, strength, and unyielding resolve. The Elder Collective, for all their terrifying power and technology, were caught off guard by the sheer determination of humanity. They had expected Earth to fall easily, just as countless other civilizations had fallen before, but they had underestimated humanity's unbreakable spirit. They couldn't comprehend the drive of a species that, when faced with extinction, fought not just to survive, but to overcome. Elena and her team led the charge, pushing through wave after wave of the Collective's forces, but it wasn't enough to simply push back. To defeat the Collective, humanity needed to strike at the heart of their operation, their central command network, the very thing that allowed them to control their galaxy-spanning empire. With the exo-armors clearing a path through the enemy, Elena and her team infiltrated the heart of the Collective's flagship, a ship so massive it seemed like a floating city. The battle to reach the core of the vessel was brutal. The Collective's forces were relentless, but the human pilots, fueled by the knowledge that the fate of the universe rested on their shoulders, fought with unyielding courage. Elena could hear the hum of the ship's massive engines, feel the tremors of the battle shaking the very walls around her. Time was running out, and with every passing second, the Collective's forces pushed harder to regain control. Finally, they reached the central command room, a vast chamber filled with the Collective's most powerful minds. The air was thick with the sense of impending doom, but Elena knew this was their moment. With a deep breath, she activated the weapon hidden within the heart of her exo-armor, a small but incredibly powerful explosive designed to disrupt the Collective's central command network. It was their last hope, and there was no turning back. Elena's team fought off the final waves of the Collective's guards as she made her way to the center of the command room. In one final act of defiance, she detonated the weapon, sending a shockwave through the ship that reverberated across the galaxy. The explosion ripped through the Collective's command network, severing their control over the entire fleet. It was a devastating blow, and for the first time in millennia, the Elder Collective's forces were thrown into chaos. Their once imposing grip on the galaxy shattered in an instant. The Collective, who had consumed countless civilizations, had finally been defeated, not by a far superior empire, but by a species they had once considered insignificant. Humanity, with all its flaws, had triumphed over the impossible. The aftermath of the battle was quiet. The skies cleared as the Elder Collective's ships began to fall, their once great empire crumbling to dust. Earth's skies were no longer blackened by the shadow of their fleet. Elena, standing amidst the ruins of the enemy's stronghold, felt a sense of both relief and disbelief. The battle was over, and humanity had emerged victorious, not just for themselves, but for the entire universe. Their secret weapon, the exo-armors, had proven to be the key to their survival. And in the end, it wasn't just technology that saved them. It was humanity's unyielding will to fight, to survive, and to protect what mattered most. Earth had been saved, and in the process, humanity had proved that even in the face of the greatest darkness, they could rise and stand tall. The Elder Collective had been defeated, but the story of humanity's courage and unity would echo through the stars for generations to come.